Today's lesson is about adding integers. And to start with this lesson, I first want to tell you the epically true story of adding integers. So once upon a time in integer world, tensions were very high. We had positive integers and we had negative integers, and they were kind of at battle with each other. They did not like each other. So what happened is they gathered their troops. This guy's got a pitchfork. We got some fire here. We had the positives on one side and we had the negatives on the other side. And what happens next? Oh, it was so terrible. You can't even see. This is censored due to highly graphic content. There was a big fight. But I'm going to tell you what happened here. So if we think about this, if we have one positive and then we have one negative and we put them together, so they're gonna battle one against one. We know that these are opposites. So boom, they're gonna come to nothing. They become zero. So each time a positive and a negative go to battle, poof, they disappear. They become zero. So right here, we have these two became zero. These two became zero. They were gone. So all that was left is this one positive integer. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to use my highlighter to make in not that color. Wow, we're really doing well here. Positive wins the victory. So when we think about this in math related terms, what we had here was 3 positives plus 2 negatives, and that is how we got 1 positive as our answer. And we can think about that every time we have integers that we're adding together. We can think about this battle. So let's say if there was 7 negatives and 5 positives. Think about this. Who's going to win the battle, the positives or the negatives? Well, there's more of these negatives, so we know the negatives are going to win. And when they all start matching up here, there's going to be 2 negatives left over. And that's kind of how we go about adding integers. So if we go to the next page here, a positive plus a positive is what we've been doing all along. And we know that we're just going to get a positive result from this. So a positive integer plus a positive integer is positive. 15 plus 6 is 21. This is the addition we've been doing all along. 3 plus 5 is 8. 22 plus 77 is 99. 14 plus 53 is 67. When we're talking about a negative plus a negative, well, there's not going to be a battle. They're all going to be friends. So if we have 15 negatives and we're going to add 6 more negatives to that, they're not going to battle. There's just going to be more negatives. So a negative number plus a negative number is going to be a negative number because there's not going to be a battle there. So negative 2 plus negative 7 is negative 9. 35 negatives plus 4 more negatives added to that army there, you're going to get negative 39. 12 negatives plus 24 negatives is 36 negatives. So those are kind of the straightforward scenarios when you're adding like for like. But when we're talking about adding a positive and a negative together, we need to think about who's going to win this battle. Who's going to win the battle here? So let's start with 15 positives and 6 negatives. Who's going to win the battle? The positives are going to win the battle because there's more of them. And when they all match up, there's going to be 9 left over. So a positive integer plus a negative integer it's going to be the sign. Another way to put it, the sign that is furthest from 0. So in this case, the positives are furthest from 0. Sign furthest from 0. In the other scenario right here, we have 15 negatives and 6 positives. In this case, the negatives are going to win the battle. And when they all match up, there's going to be 9 negatives left over. So it's really helpful when you're doing this type of addition is to really think about, you can think about the integer battle. So if we have 2 positives and 8 negatives, who's going to win the battle here? The negatives are going to win the battle. And after these 2 positives and 2 of these negatives match up, how many negatives are going to be left over? Now we have a whole bunch of practice for you to try. In the first section right here, this is just a positive plus a positive. If you want to skip this section, that is okay. If you feel like you've got your addition without a calculator down, that is fine. One thing that I do want to point out right here is these parentheses. Sometimes what we do when we are showing negative numbers is we just put a parenthesis around it to just make it read a little better. So all this is saying is negative 25 plus negative 20. And the concern there is I think that sometimes it looks a little weird if you have these 2 signs right next to each other, plus negative. So all the parenthesis is there to do is to separate that out and make it look more aesthetic for you or easier to follow along. So go ahead and try these problems right here. Here are the answers. Go ahead, take a second and check all these. Make sure if you got one wrong that you understand what you did wrong.